welcome to senior presentation number 3. Today we have Morgan, who will be sharing some long-time passions, and an important topic, the importance of voting, what it means to be engaged citizens. What is part of our mission here at Valley New School? To help you become what? Purposeful adults, that's right. And part of being a purposeful adult is to be an involved citizen wherever it is that you are residing. So look forward to hearing from Morgan, and we'll turn it over.
Testing, can you hear me? In this speech, I will be discussing political escapism, what politics are, historical examples of successful action, the importance of political discussion, my life sources, statistical analysis, and my project process. Here are some terms that are used during this presentation and their definitions. I'll leave that up for a few seconds so I can read them all. Throughout U.S. history, political engagement has been pretty high. The people of the United States have cared about political matters for a very long time. We have changed many systems that were very different from what we have today through actions like protesting, boycotting, voting, or calling and writing our representatives. But with that hard work today, that I went to meet this presentation. We are present in a time that is often referred to as the information age. People all across the world have some sort of device, whether it's a computer, a TV, or most commonly, a phone. Everyone and their grandparents have one, but might not know how to use it well. Through the internet, everyday people have never had an easier way to access information. From learning new hobbies like baking, writing, and gaming, to college-level online classes in topics like history, STEM, religion, and religions. Well, despite all this, an ugly truth rears its head. We have access to information more easily than we ever had in human history, and it naturally includes things we don't want to hear about, things we wish to avoid, things from which we want to escape. Maybe it's a musical topic you are particularly interested in, like a coworker posting about their child's sports game. Perhaps a random person showing off what they ate today. Maybe it's some celebrity who's trending for their third controversy this year. Or maybe it's a car accident that happened just the other night, or a virus that's spreading around, or the company you work for getting a lawsuit. Or maybe it's resources getting banned, or people having their rights stripped away from them. Maybe it's one of the many lives lost to police brutality, or a full-blown genocide happening just on the other side of the world. We all see, more or less, a mixture of these things every single day. To go from hearing about Sally's makeup routine to groups of people massacred on the streets causes a sense of cognitive dissonance and association within us. It's not happening to me, so I don't care. It doesn't involve me, so it doesn't matter. What I do wouldn't make a difference anywhere. These are all things we tell ourselves at one point or another. It's important, however, not just to us on an individual level, but to our country, to care, to become involved, to participate. In fact, our democracy depends on our engagement. Government by the people, for the people. Yes, that's right. We need to be involved in politics. What is politics? Well, it's important to understand that politics is much more than government, laws, and complicated sounding bills and policies. The truth about politics is that it isn't just one category or box an idea. Everything is politics. If you enjoy good school lunches, nice looking neighborhoods, new buildings being constructed, streets being fixed, national parks, trees being planted, and many more, all these things are political and can be affected by politics in varying ways. Politics consists of bills, acts, or policies relating to economics, education, climate, healthcare, military, funding, social issues, foreign relations, immigration, agriculture, infrastructure, and taxes. There are people who say they aren't into politics, but the areas covered by are vast to the point it's impossible to not be impacted by politics. Everything, whether it should be or not, is political. It affects us, and we affect it. The more we choose to affect it, the more politics affect us in the way we want it to. A plethora of events throughout U.S. history display just how much political engagement makes a difference. The abolitionist movement, for example, against slavery, proved highly effective, with large historical figures like Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Angela Grimke, John Brown, William Lloyd Garrison, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Beecher Stowe, and many, many more, paving the way for the success of the movement leading up to the Civil War. With the collective efforts of everyone in the movement, slavery was abolished. Unfortunately, even though slavery was abolished, laws continued to be passed in the southern states, maintaining segregation. Supporters of these Jim Crow laws, Jim Crow is a pejorative term for African American men, portraying them as unintelligent, are used as a stereotypical caricature, commonly used in minstrel shows in the 1800s, manipulated the doctrine of separate but equal to maintain white privilege. These laws created economic, social, and educational disadvantage for almost 100 years. It was finally the political involvement of Oliver Brown that made a difference. He courageously sued the Board of Education in Topeka, Kansas, when they wouldn't let his daughter attend an all-white elementary school. The segregation of public schools was finally banned in 1954, with the Supreme Court's decision in the landmark case, Brown v. the Board of Education of Topeka. This opened the door for the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s, an era characterized by protests, marches, boycotts, and sit-ins. In 1955, bus boycotts spread after boycotts in Montgomery, Alabama, where Rosa Parks had refused to give up her seat to a white man. The Freedom Rides of 1961 saw students from many other cities riding into Jackson, Mississippi to desegregate southern bus terminals. In 1963, over 200,000 people participated in the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. The acts of these political participation, among others, led President John F. Kennedy to issue an executive order in 1961, which ensured that people, regardless of identity, would have equal access and opportunities in government employment. And this led President Lyndon B. Johnson to issue an executive order in 1965 prohibiting discrimination regarding race, nationality, and ethnicity. In 1969, a woman named Norma McCurry, given the legal synonym Jane Roe, became pregnant with her third child in Texas, the state where she resided. Abortions were performed only if the pregnancy was deemed a threat to the mother's life. Her lawyers filed a lawsuit on her behalf in the U.S. federal court, deeming this law unconstitutional. A three-judge court in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas heard the case and ruled it in her favor. The parties appealed this case to the Supreme Court, and in January 1975, the Supreme Court issued a 7-2 decision in McCurry's favor because of the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, which provides a fundamental right to privacy, which in turn also protects the right to an abortion. Yet another case of people taking political action to make change, this time in the judicial system. If we forget the power we have in our participation, we risk the regression of everything that was worked hard for and prevent new positive change from taking hold. Political participation does not need to be as big as a march to the nation's capital or testifying before the Supreme Court. We can possibly affect change by sharing our voices. Some people also avoid the topic of politics in discussion to avoid potential conflict. As we know it, politics are something people have varying opinions on related to issues in government, social issues, or policies. Whether it be family, friends, coworkers, or even strangers, it's an important discussion to have at one point or another. It can spark thought-provoking conversations, deepen bonds, and help you either surround yourself with like-minded people or get other perspectives. Though it's common for people to not be accepting of other opinions, if you go into a discussion or debate with the intention of swaying someone's mind, it's important to keep it civil and calm and consider things that might be objectively true and keep an open mind. With that said, I encourage people to have these conversations since there's a lot that can be gained. Regardless, you might feel like conversation is futile and won't work in your favor regardless of how much you try. Well, it's important to keep your head up because there's another way to be politically involved and is perhaps the most important. Voting is the most direct and well-known way of making change in our democracy. This can be observed since the very early days of this country. Our society never would have progressed to what it is today without this form of political engagement. But unfortunately, many Americans choose not to vote. Why would you deny yourself this freedom, this right? Some view their vote as inconsequential, others fear straining relationships. Some could be abstaining from voting because they view all elected officials as untrustworthy and self-serving. I decided to put that last idea to the test. I scheduled interviews with 2 elected officials. On April 2nd, I had an interview with Mayor Jake Woodford. I asked some questions about the state of political apathy in Appleton. Thankfully, citizens of Appleton have been pretty engaged in politics, but sometimes they get too absorbed in national politics and forget about what's happening locally. Political apathy does have a little bit of play to it, but he tries his best to sway people's minds by appealing to the interests of the people rather than himself and his personal opinions. He believes it is his duty to serve his community and tries his best to reflect the wishes of the community and not just his own. He believes as an elected official that is his duty and hope that reinforces belief in him. He doesn't blame anyone for having apathy when they see everything that's going on in the world. He wants, however, to show everyone that their choices do still matter. On April 29th, I interviewed Representative Snodgrass. Representative Snodgrass is a state representative of the 57th Assembly District of Appleton and Neenah. Our first topic of discussion was political apathy. She said that because Wisconsin is an important turning point state, people might be burned out from the consistent political pressure. But because of everything that is at stake in terms of politics, we don't have the luxury to feel that burnout. She explained that from her perspective as an individual with white privilege, it's important not just to consider how electoral outcomes can affect her, but also how it affects individuals who are marginalized. She and we must consider how it affects our relatives, our friends, our coworkers and colleagues, our neighbors, and also strangers. She also agrees with the sentiment of encouraging people to look past the surface when it comes to bills being signed and laws being passed. Let's say that a bill was signed placing a ban on gender-affirming care for trans individuals. On the surface, that affects trans people, but will also affect cisgender individuals like men who have a testosterone deficiency or women going through menopause who need estrogen. My reviews go to show that there are political figures who care about their community try to do its best for them. The bottom line is, it's better to vote for someone who aligns with your values as much as possible than to vote for no one at all. Mayor Woodford's words can be reflected in the surveys I had adults of the AASD take. Of 92 responses, the majority of them vote regularly, 57.6 voting regularly, 31.5 vote most of the time, and a combined amount of 10.9 who vote sometimes, rarely, or never / unregistered. Of these individuals, 71.7 also vote in non-presidential elections, with 19.6 sometimes and 8.7 never. What surprised me is that of these people, 93.5 plan to vote in the upcoming 2024 election, with 3.3 unsure and 3.3 who plan not to. Here in BNS, of 44 responses, 50% report they only engage in political conversation sometimes, 11.4 all the time, 34.1 reporting uninterest in the discussion, and 4.5 reporting that they would never engage with political conversation and discourse with their family and peers. In terms of BNS students who inform themselves on current events, the minority groups are students who inform themselves daily and those unaware of current events. 50% of students sometimes feel intimidated by the complexity of politics, 34.1 do not, and 15.9 regularly feel intimidated. After listening to this presentation, you might want to start getting involved, but have no clue where to start. To get involved in politics, you can volunteer at organizations that support a cause you're passionate about, including political parties. Nonprofit organizations like Rock the Vote, ESTHER, League of Women Voters, the NAACP, and the ACLU, and many, many more offer ways to help you with issues locally. To give input about bills in your state, you can call or write to your state representatives, either with a pre-made script or script of your own. To stay informed on political matters in your local community, you can contact your alderman who attends meetings, look at reputable news sources, listen to podcasts, or read articles. Now on to my project process. Like in all projects, this is split into 3 phases: the research phase, the planning phase, and then the production phase. In this project, I did this project with both set deadlines and deadlines I set for myself unofficially. At the beginning of this project, I originally had a different topic in mind, but in the preliminary research phase, I thought the topic would be a little difficult to do. I'm definitely still interested in researching my original topic, just without deadlines and without the pressure of needing to have it done by a certain time. For note-taking, I use Microsoft OneNote. I personally really love using it as a method of note-taking, but I know it might not be for everyone. The way I used OneNote was by making sections based off main topics, subtopics, and then I would divide my actual notes by sources used. The difficult part I would say about using Microsoft OneNote is figuring out a metric of counting these notes. I personally did not count them and sort of went by how in-depth they were. Later down the line, with the help of Dr. Wallace, I created a calendar for the production phase. I feel that helped me keep track of how I'm doing on my products and if there's anything I still need to do. I found myself repeatedly going back to it as a reference for figuring out what I need to do for that day. After graduation, I'll be attending Fox Valley Technical College and pursuing a degree in electrical engineering technology. When I was in 8th grade, I attended a career fair and spoke to someone who worked as an electrician. He told me about his job, the type of work he does, and even taught me how to wire a light bulb as well as an outlet. Since then, I decided that's what I want my career choice to be. I would like to give a special thanks to the live sources I had, Representative Lee Snodgrass and Mayor Jake Woodford. And I would like to also acknowledge my family, my friends, the advisors, Hillary Hoskill, Mayor Woodford and Snodgrass, and everyone else who participated in my surveys for all helping me in some way in this project. Thank you all so much for listening to my project. Any questions?
Could you, first hands, spare some advice for the future UMass senior?
I have a lot of things I could advise for future seniors. Definitely log, that's very important, that's for sure. But if you're unsure about things in terms of what you can do for credit, or just how you're going in your project processes, you can talk to any of the other advisors. I personally love going to Ms. K, as she knows, so yeah, that's the advice I can give, Ashley. So my original topic was going about, how do I word this? It was about sort of modern day genocides going on in our time. It's a very heavy topic, I know, and that was a topic I was really passionate about and wanted to do, but struggled with finding the proper sources for it and information. Any other questions? Oh, Adrian.
Favorite part of this project?
My favorite part of this project, even though it did take a long time and felt a little bit draining to me, I had a lot of fun writing my essay and my script. Cameron.
Least favorite part about your project?
Contacting live sources. I contacted like 7 people in total and only had 2 people actually schedule interviews with me. So that really sucks. I know some other seniors said they're going through the same thing. Beckett?
Did you have any specifically extra scary or stressful part of this project?
Stressful part, I don't know. I would say it's mostly trying to meet deadlines on time. So there's a lot of parts of a senior project that can take more or less time. Phoebe?
What would you say is the most rewarding
Resource, like in terms of live sources or just sources for research? I would say the most rewarding was having a lot of information out there be accessible to me. I did run into some paywalled news articles, which wasn't very fun, but that was really happy to me. I got tons and tons of sources about all sorts of things, so I was never just short on knowledge. My law.
Is there any really interesting facts you learned that you couldn't put into presentation?
Interesting facts. I would say what was really interesting to me was looking into statistics about the 2020 election, the election of 2022, and the upcoming election short up. I read that roughly 50 to 66% of all U.S. Americans who are 18 and older are registered, but I think roughly 40% actually do turn out regularly. And proudest moment getting here. Tia.
Did this project change your perspective on voting in politics?
So I went into this project already knowing the importance of voting in politics, but as I gathered more and more sources, it became clear to me, and looking back on past examples, that's a really important thing to do. And I just realized the importance of that even more, and, you know, I registered to vote last weekend, so I get to participate in that in November. I'm happy for that. Abby?
What's an important fact about this project that you want everyone to know?
Can you say that again? I can't hear you very well, sorry.
What's an important part of this project that you want everyone to know?
The fact about this project, like in terms of information I got, or just generally?
Information.
Information I got, there's a lot of things that are really important, but it's important to think outside of yourself when it comes to politics and voting, because yesterday when I had my interview with Representative Snodgrass, we had talked about how some people kind of have this me type mentality, and the truth of it is, it affects all of us in this country. So it's important to think about not just how something can affect you, but how it can affect everyone else. Hillary?
How did you choose which political movements and pieces of legislation to include in your presentation?
What pieces I chose? So I was mainly trying to look for things that weren't super major things. I was trying to look for things like agriculture, climate, social issues, things like that, because I feel to people that's much more personal than all those things that can be considered politically complicated or can go over people's heads. Adam?
If you had to convince all the people who aren't voting to vote, how would you go about doing that?
Probably in a similar way I did with this presentation. I would tell them that, you know, it's a privilege to not need to worry about political outcomes, because, as you know, someone like me and my family, that's a privilege we don't have. So I want to emphasize people that if they can't care about it for themselves, they need to care about it for people around them and people who live with them in this country.
Now that you have all this information, what are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna stay involved in helping people vote, or is there an organization you wanna get involved in?
I would absolutely help people get involved with the voting process, and right now, my hands are super tied in terms of time I have, but if I had a lot more time with me, I would certainly go and volunteer at these organizations to do what I can to help the community and help in terms of politics. Isaac?
Trying to think the best way. What's how do you find, I guess, non-biased sources for like voting and such?
So a way you can do that is you'll have to be okay with digging into people who make things like articles or journalists. You kind of have to look into their background and see what type of stuff they report on, and you can see people's biases through their writing. So I would just encourage people to dig into people's backgrounds for the most part. Theo?
What advice do you have for people who are afraid of political discussions or think they're like not appropriate to have in the workplace or in public, really?
The advice I would have is, the main thing about it is to not be afraid of confrontation, because that is the main thing of it, really. And you have to be okay with disagreements. You have to be okay with people not sharing the same political beliefs as you, even if you don't agree with them or you might even hate them. You have to, in some way, agree to disagree, even if you might really want that, even if you might not really want that, sorry. Yeah, you have to go into it calmly and leave out of it calmly as well.
Theo's question, what if you know that, what if you know based on your own research that the people you're discussing politics with are, I wanna say ignorant, meaning that they don't know that what they're saying isn't true? Do you have advice for how to approach that?
So for that, you can advise them to dig deeper into their sources, cross-reference across multiple people to see if they're seeing the same thing, and kind of just be open-minded to being wrong, consider other perspectives or other facts, and just look for everything to get the truth and formulate your own opinion. Anyone for question? Oh, wait, Aiden, sorry.
How would be the best way to like engage in the topic with someone whose beliefs are like hard set and they've been reinforced by the exhibitions that they've been living in their lives, or everyone has like similar beliefs, and thus it's truly reinforcing what they're getting in the media is super selective, so what they're finding in media is only supporting what they believe in. How would be the best way to approach the topic to them and actually allow them to see the other side?
So that can be really tricky because, as you said, there are people who go their entire life believing one thing, and it can essentially shatter their whole world to think that there's something outside of what they grew up with. So the unfortunate truth is that you might not be able to sway everyone's minds, but at the end of the day, you can only consider things from their perspective, and you can thank them for telling you what they grew up and how they learned things and how they grew up learning things, how they can struggle with considering other perspectives. And that's kind of just don't get heated with them because that'll just make them double down. Getting angry at them and the conversation will not work, I can tell you that for sure. So just be calm, do the best you can to get them to see things from your side. And that's kind of just it.
What is the biggest thing you learned through this project? Not like the information you learned, but like the process. What is it? Most important thing you got?
The important thing I got from this project was deadlines can help. They can be hard to work with, but you always gotta personalize how things work for you and figure out under what conditions you work the best and things like that. Setting deadlines, I've historically kind of struggled with that in the past, but I was definitely better with it this time around. I kind of figured out for myself how long it would take me for me to do this type of thing. And I would mark it on a calendar and then constantly reference that. Something someone can do is if they struggle with seeing that or following those all the time, you can set I forgot what it's called. So you can set a task on your phone to either block out apps that can distract you, or you can have you can set a future date for when something is due. I wouldn't set the date of the time it's due. I would set a little bit before, so you know that date's coming up, so you can focus on that more if you're falling behind. Miss Kim.
I wondered if you have ideas about things we should continue to do or begin to do at Valley New School to promote being open to other ideas and or participating in politics?
Ideas I have for that sort of thing is for service, you can encourage people to go to any of these groups I listed on here or any others they find. That's something for sure they can do. You can create groups, maybe specific for having these type of discussions, so they can learn more about their peers, what their ideals, their beliefs are, and so you can just kind of know more about your community. have a question?
I did, it's lost in the brain now.
Alright. Anyone else? Mr. Nelson?
Yeah, so I'm curious to hear, I know you listed a variety of different resources that, students can potentially look to become informed on current events. I'm curious to hear what you've heard, you individually, go to and utilize for resource.
So what I go through for sources are for figuring out information and things like that. On my Google page, I do constantly get information about things that are going on politically, like, I don't know, Biden signing a bill or providing funds, things like that. I do see the news every once in a while. Information spreads like wildfire on the internet, but the tricky thing about it is that people very often spread information. So the important thing about that, if that's what you do, is you just double check things. You have another one?
Yeah, I've got one last question. I know you said that you recently registered to vote. I think it would be pretty cool if you maybe told the rest of the students what that process looked like, if it was easy, if it was difficult. That'd be a cool thing to elaborate on.
So I registered to vote online. I don't know what it's like to do it in person, but I went to myvote.gov. It's right here. You can go to it, but you have to be at least 18, at least 20 days before an election. Unless you're moving to a different house or something like that, you only really need to register once. It was a very easy process. You just need to have your state ID and just kind of know your information, like where you live, your information, your names, documents, things like that. It's a pretty simple